I will not forget the first time that I had to do live television.
But no, you've been the face now of Feldco for a long time.
Yeah, how did that start?
I lost a bet. I mean, and not that I'm a betting guy, but that day I was.
He
And he
gets
goes,
you to do a lot of
"David,
stuff.
You're up. And he points, he's like, you're up. And I'm like,
Wow.
Yeah, you're right behind the Empire guy that I grew up with, man. You're
Dave has a
what do you
story
mean I'm
about.
behind the Empire?
Hey. I know they're both.
He's a cartoon, man. I'm alive.
Hello, everybody. Episode 23, XR Podcast. Of course, we got Greg Cerrone here.
Hello.
We got Sherry from the office here. This is her first time here, so.
Finally.
And she brought the infamous, you've seen him on TV. And if you need windows, he's the man. Dave Cook from Feldco Windows.
Turn up and soon. Call now.
For quality windows, siding, and doors, call 866 for Feldco.
Dave, happy to have you here. What an honor it's been.
Happy to be here. Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. So, yeah, maybe I wasn't here for the beginning when you got here. So, like, what's the story? Like, how'd you guys start?
So I told you, Greg, a little bit
Yeah.
before.
Yeah,
you-
sorry
no,
to
that's
make it
okay.
for you.
But the late '90s, he was in business school at Kellogg in Evanston, Northwestern, and was working in national advertising sales, and was kind of sick of the corporate world. Just cast a really wide net.
Yeah.
And it wasn't anything, I don't think, specific to, certainly wasn't like home improvement and saying that that's what I want to do.
Yeah, it's
As a matter of
interesting.
fact, it was probably anything but. Somehow Feldco came across his radar, and Bernie Feld, who was the founder of Feldco, was in a position where his kids didn't have any interest in the business, so it was one of those family businesses that was going to pass not generationally. So he put the business up for sale, and I think they picked each other. They met each other, and there was a mutual respect, and it was the business kind of offered a great opportunity to grow.
Yeah.
And particularly given sort of my brother's wheelhouse of expertise, he would and likes to say that the business was dusty but not rusty. And so he dusted it off and fueled the flames with a lot of advertising and put some really good business principles in place. And it's been a remarkable success. And when I say that, it's a case study at Kellogg School right now.
Wow.
For business entrepreneurial.
Wow. You guys should be
business.
proud. Imagine your brother was
I'm
there.
just the guy. I'm just the guy on TV. So
I know.
But I am proud because it is, it's something that
You started too from the beginning.
Yeah, I was there early on, and largely I put my face on this business.
I know.
And so I take it.
We all know.
Yeah, we all know.
I take it really very personally, and fortunately, my brother is so committed to his business, and so really so good at it that it's been easy for me to do.
Yeah.
So
What was it like? He's going business to business. Like, does he ever tell you, like, hey, what was it? Was it like the owner of the business that attracted to him? Like, who would think like windows?
So the big thing is, I think when you're looking for something, is you're looking for the opportunity to make money, right?
Sure,
So,
of course.
Margins are important. So, marginally speaking, it was a good business. It had great, sort of great roots. So it was a business that was,
It's a good concept.
it was a great concept.
Yeah.
It was, it was an original founder of the business that was selling and had operated it really well throughout the years in a good, reputable way. And we talked about it a little bit before we started all this, and it's somewhat, the industry is somewhat recession resistant.
Yeah.
It isn't necessarily driven by downturns in the economy. People will invest in their largest asset, and that's their home.
Yeah.
And so when things get a little tight, you know, let's take our money that we have available and put it somewhere that we know it's going to be safe, and that's
Yeah, their house is more than the numbers. You know, it's
Right.
it's emotional. It's where their kids grow up
Spot
and they're
on.
born, and the first, you know, so much stuff going on.
yeah.
So that's why putting some new windows is always.
Yeah, and then when they buy it, it's like, okay, we gotta get new windows at some point, and then like finally they're like,
And it can be an emotional decision. It can be driven by a lot of different things, right?
Correct.
And you know, our experience has been that it's oftentimes driven by, you know, the female in the household. So the demographic for our market
Always.
is
Right, Sherry?
is Sherry.
yeah,
So I mean, and you know, they say happy wife,
Happy life.
happy
life.
life,
Yeah.
and it's true.
Yeah, I could say it's true. I got 4 girls besides the wife, three daughters. So,
Oh, you can speak from
so
real
I could,
experience.
yes,
I've got a daughter.
you know how it goes.
I do. I'd do anything for her.
Especially for real estate, for us, like, you know, a nice curb appeal when you're selling your house, or just to look good in the black, right? It's huge. And you guys doing windows and siding is like,
It's
big.
so that's certainly one of the things that we like to be able to, you know, sell
Yeah.
is your ability to change the appearance of your home really relatively
really
quickly
does,
and
yeah.
affordably. So curb appeal is everything to people. I mean,
100%.
they you can take a home and, you know, whether it's windows, you can
Yep.
change styles, you can
Yep.
change grids, you can change colors.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you could redo capping or trim in a different color.
it makes it completely different. different
Absolutely, and you can, you know, and we also do roofing, so we can do, you know, we can literally change the complexion of a house,
The
like,
whole, yep.
like
Yep,
quickly,
yep.
really quickly, and thoroughly. So you put a new door on a house, you put, you know, new siding, new windows, you know, potentially shutters.
Yeah.
You know, we even have a sister company. I don't know
Nice.
if you're aware that Feldco's sister company is Danley's Garages.
Why did
oh,
you
is
know?
it?
Yeah, so
Wow.
we own Danley's as well. So,
Nice.
and there's also Vertical Chimney. I don't know if you're aware of that, but Vertical Chimney, which is a chimney, you know, restoration company, and, you know, based on other
Yeah.
exterior. So all of these companies essentially do envelope products.
Makes sense.
We do, you know, exterior home improvement, and it's it's stuff that can really change not only the functionality of your home, but also the appearance, and, you know, quickly, affordably, and efficiently.
And it could help, you know, us being in real estate could help the value.
Absolutely,
You get a
Oh,
lot more money
Yeah.
if your curb appeal looks better. So, you know, that's huge. Or even like, I don't know if you guys do a lot of commercial buildings,
We
like 6 flats, 10 units.
So we do.
Okay.
We have a division that handles. Well, I mean, it's really more residential, multi-unit residential.
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's typically 3 stories and under. You know,
Okay.
once we get to 4, can do it, but it gets, you know, we're
Depend how-
not pushing too high.
I get it.
So you know,
But that
and
could
we can do big properties, but
Okay.
you know,
Yeah.
it's a little bit different than our conventional
I get it.
operation. So we operate that a little bit differently. But yes, it's something that those people look at that investment typically a little bit differently. It's
They
more of an
do.
energy efficiency,
They do.
you know, improvement on the property. You know, it's
Yeah.
got, so I'm sure you've probably seen cost of value
Yes,
studies.
absolutely.
And so cost of value on certain home improvements, they vary, right? So, you know, windows are going to be different than
Yep.
bathroom remodels and
course.
kitchens and all those different things. So they all have a certain return on cost.
They're different margins.
Right. So a lot of our products have a significant, you know, value, either enhancement or stability
Okay.
inherently. And that's something that, you know, we like to make people aware
Yeah.
of because it's a good investment. I mean, like,
Right.
you know, to the point of being recession resistant, you know, you're going to want to put your money somewhere where it's not going to just, you know, you're not going to spend it. And all of a sudden, the day you spend it, it's like driving a car off the lot and it's you know, depreciated by.
Yeah, the car, you're always losing.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. It's a negative asset, you know?
Right. But I mean,
But-
some investments can be that way even in your home, too. I mean,
Right.
some more than others. And so,
If you're putting a fancy coffee machine, a miele, you know,
Right. Right.
That's really not gonna.
But you know,
mean nothing
if
for
you're
a
like you and
future
I,
buyer.
and you
Yeah.
love coffee,
To us, it does.
then you're going to put the Melee coffee machine in
probably
your
are,
house. I mean, there's certain things you won't skimp on, right?
That is true. That is true. But overall, if I'm going there and they're like, hey, can you give me a CMA? Tell me the value of the house. If you have new windows, right, Sherry? It's your house is worth more.
It's worth more because the buyer's going to spend more on that home,
Exactly.
knowing
Right.
they don't have to invest that money,
I
in
would-
the near future.
I was just going to say that when you're like recently when I've been out with buyers, that's like one of the first things they want to see. Like, how old are the windows? Like they want to
Do
know.
they panic? Yes or no?
Yeah.
How
Oh,
when they're
100%
old,
they panic when
the
they're
first
old.
time home buyer, like you had a first time home buyer. The first thing when they see old windows, they panic.
They panic.
Right?
They
Because they're
panic.
thinking
It's
like, oh
going to
my
cost
God.
thousands and
Exactly.
to do.
So some houses are not selling out there just because
Windows.
windows.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, there's certain little
know?
triggers that some
Yeah.
people are not willing to,
Correct.
go beyond. And it's usually because of lack of knowledge, because quite honestly, it's a pretty
It's not
easy.
that bad. I
No,
know.
it's
I
not.
know.
It's not as expensive as
expen-
people
I
think
know.
it is. And
Even with
B,
inflation, because I heard the price you were telling me about inflation now. But
inflation has affected everything.
Yeah.
I mean,
But it's still not
everything.
that bad.
It's not that bad. And compared to everything, it's still an affordable investment and a good one.
Exactly.
So there are certain things that you can do, and it's quick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's painless. And so, in our business, one of the things we wanted to be is like, construction has always had kind of a bad rap, right?
Yeah,
like
all
it's
the-
like
all the time.
too many people have, there's too many fly-by-night people out there that don't really care.
That's
I
true.
can tell you that's not the way we do business.
Oh, we know.
period.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
we stand exactly where we speak from, and that's when we say what we're going to do,
like it.
we do it. Do we make mistakes? Of course,
Everybody does.
but we fix them always.
But there is a stigma against people in the trades.
Yeah,
Because there's people
you
like
bet.
come in and out, they make some money, and then all of a sudden you can't even call them, they
Exactly.
don't come back. So that's why.
Yeah,
A lot of people are
for
always
sure.
like,
Yeah, there's just.
yeah.
I mean, I think in every industry there is. Our industry there is. It's just, but.
But more in the construction.
Oh yeah, more construction because
David's
people,
right.
some of them just aren't business
More in the
people. They're
construction.
workers. And
Because they don't have
and-
like us, we have to get a license. We have some rules, regulation to follow, state rules.
So do we,
Yeah.
believe it or not. I mean,
Yeah,
more than
But a
you
lot
might
of these trade
think.
people,
They don't.
they don't follow at
But
all.
that's just it. So that's like the hook and ladder person,
Okay.
the guy that's going to pull up with a pickup truck
Yeah,
that
yeah, yeah.
has the ladder hanging, and they don't operate within the rules.
Yeah.
So can you get us a cheaper deal out there? Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
I mean, there are people out there that are going to do something for less money.
correct, of course.
But the old adage, you get what you pay for.
That's
Yep.
true.
And so when something does go wrong, can you call them back?
No.
Will they answer? Will they respond? Will they take care of the problem?
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's not happening.
Will they be here?
Yeah. So
Probably
I mean,
not.
that's kind of that's how we go to market, and that's who we are.
No, you guys do a great job.
We
Everybody.
try. And there's no lack of commitment that way. I mean, it's not like some people are invested in that, some aren't. We recently, so we're like 5 years, 6 years running now. We've been right at the top for mid-sized businesses by Cranes as most admired places to work in Chicago. So we've really tried to build a culture where everybody's invested in that mission, and that is to be the leading home renewal business or the leading home renewal company in the Midwest, and
That's awesome.
they,
And being a Chicago-based company, that's pretty amazing.
yeah. And so we've expanded throughout the Midwest, through the upper Midwest, through the course of the years, and have basically all of Wisconsin covered, eastern Iowa, all of Illinois, into Indiana and soon Michigan. So we like to continue to expand our footprint, but do it in a way that's very methodical. It's not done usually through any acquisition. We'll go into a marketplace and start the business the way we operate the business, and that's not going and buying somebody's employees. We like to develop our own. You're obviously going to have to recruit and hire and
course.
train and develop that way, but ultimately it's to operate the business the way we operate the business.
We
You
wanna
guys still
start the
doing?
right way.
Yeah. Are you guys still doing direct sale to consumer then?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So that's mainly the business.
That's the
direct
business.
sell to the
Yeah,
consumer.
consumer direct.
Wow.
It's interesting. What we've tried to do is basically, I guess for lack of better description, comparatively, is be kind of the McDonald's or the Starbucks, if you will, of
Yeah.
the home improvement business, which is, to be a really great experience. We want the experience to be as seamless and positive and, basically organically, viral, if you will. And again, I'm not trying to say we do things perfectly because we're not perfect, but boy, we work at it. I mean, continuous improvement, change, all that stuff is on our radar constantly. So, it's really, there's a commitment to that is unusual in our industry.
So mostly outdoor improvements, right?
Yeah.
Are you guys thinking about getting in the indoor?
In the old days, we used to do cabinet refacing, so kitchens.
Okay. Oh, really?
Yeah, and
Like with your brother?
Yeah.
Like you guys?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that was one of our products. It wasn't as controlled as we wanted. Certain businesses, and one of the things that we really stand by is sort of the whole KISS model, which is keep it simple, stupid, right? So when I say that, I mean we don't maybe offer some of the things that other companies will offer in terms of like this huge spectrum of options. Now it depends a little bit on products. Like for instance, our window line, our window line is going to probably satisfy about 90, maybe 95% of the people out there. But there's that 5% that wants something specific that we don't do because it's too outside of our box. It's where we've found problems to exist in the past.
I get it.
So rather than try to be everything to everybody, we try to stick to our wheelhouse and be really convicted. And it's tough sometimes to say, no, you know what?
Yeah, it's hard.
We don't do that.
Yeah.
And here's why we don't do that. But we're not everything to everybody.
Yeah.
But we are
Makes sense.
most to most.
Correct.
So that's kind of the model there. Doors, for instance, gosh, we have the options are virtually endless. So, they're between glass packages and colors and styles and those types of things. It's really, it's a huge spectrum. So it kind of depends on the product that you're talking about, but with kitchens specifically, they were really, a lot of it depended on material and what you were working with, prior. So we were actually modifying something existing. So if you didn't, it wasn't a new product. It was, it's basically refacing an old product. And there's some inherent difficulties with that.
Yeah.
So we decided we were going to kind of exit that product line. And
Makes sense.
it just kind of fit with our business model, which was to keep it simple, stupid.
Yeah.
Well, then you could do better. You could just do better service. Everything's better. You're not getting distracted for the other 5% of people, and you serve your customer better than.
And there are people that will do those projects.
Yeah,
So
well,
it's
sure.
not like we're leaving somebody high and dry.
No.
Now on the flip side, sometimes in our business we'll find that 85% of a job or 90% of a job is something we do and love to do, and then there's that little slice that they're like, but we need to do that too, and we're going to say no.
Yeah.
But it's not for us. And sometimes people are like, but we want you to do, and say, okay, we'll do that. We'll do that 90% of your work. And, unfortunately, the next thing you hear sometimes is like, okay, who do you recommend to do that?
Yeah.
That's a tough one.
That's a tough one, right? Even in your business, because
Yeah.
when somebody asks
It's a
for a
tough one.
recommendation,
It
it's
doesn't
it's
turn
like
out
Because then
right.
your
Yeah.
reputation's in the line,
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know how the other guy's going to operate. And we have a hard time sometimes with that.
If you take pride in what you do, you like to control
Correct.
what you're doing.
Correct. Right,
So-
Sherry?
Well, yeah, because you're putting your name essentially on the person that you're recommending. So if I'm gonna recommend you, you better be pretty good at
That's
it,
right.
or
That's
I'm gonna
why
fire you. That's
When we have a client, I got to send Sherry. I'm like, Sherry, I'm sending you. Let's make sure that, you got
When you send Sherry, it's a done deal.
That's right.
Who wouldn't want you to show up on the door?
Oh, that's so nice. Some people,
course.
I'm sure, but you know, it's okay.
But it's funny how, we're super happy you're here too, by the way.
Thanks for having me.
No, thank you. And I know you're friends with Sherry,
Yeah, so I
that's
met
pretty-
Sherry out with dogs.
Yeah,
of all
her
things.
passion of dogs.
Yeah, so I've got
loves her
I've
dog
got
and you
a
got-
similar ailment when it comes to
Yeah.
passion of animals. So
You got a big one.
I do. I have a big dog.
What is he, like 60 pounds? He's got to be 60, 70 pounds. How much is he?
It's like 85.
Oh, he's 85.
85.
Whoa.
But he's a tall 85.
He
like
is
he's
like you.
He's bigger than you, Frank.
Yeah,
He's
what kind of
bigger
dog
than
is it?
Frank.
What kind of dog is it?
He's a Bernedoodle. He's really cute.
Oh, wow.
He's a cute
Oh, he's a beast.
dog.
I mean, he's not, but he's
Yeah.
No,
and,
he's
and
big.
then before we
He's
bring him to
big.
you, if he's got a coat on, when I say a coat on, I mean like his hair gets, he grows, and he looks. I mean, if he's not trimmed, he looks pretty big. On top of being pretty big, so yeah, they're great. I mean,
Sherry,
so
too.
Sherry, I met Sherry, which is
Correct.
how I've in turn ended up here with you guys,
Correct.
and I like what you guys do. I've always enjoyed real estate. I've dabbled in it in different ways, throughout the years, and certainly our business is, really a kissing cousin of the real estate
Yeah,
business,
100%.
right? So
100%.
it's,
100%. No, we admire, of course, Feldco. We know them for years, and even today I told my wife I was going to do an interview with you. I'm like, she's like, wow, you got to ask about the jingle. He,
I think
you're
that's
not
pushing
gonna
it.
catch
I
me
think that's,
singing
yeah,
it. That's
I was
for darn
gonna
sure.
say,
We won't
I'm not pushing that. He's
I'm joking.
that's not going to happen.
But no, you've been the face now of Feldco for a long time.
Yeah, how did that start?
That's
Did you,
it.
did,
That-
what was
Oh,
that?
you
Missed
missed
the
that
story, so
story.
you came
You
in a
missed the
little
story.
late.
You came
No,
way
it's
late.
okay.
We'll
I'll
say it
say it
again.
again. I lost a bet. I mean, and not that I'm a betting guy, but that day I was. And so
Man,
mean,
that was some bet.
23 years ago.
We thought you were a professional actor,
Well, now
but now,
now
say
the
story.
floodwaters are rising. No, hardly. As a matter of fact, I mean, cameras, I look over here and we have a camera, but I'm not even fond of cameras. But, there's certain things you just have to do in life, right?
Yeah,
that's
and,
right.
Yep.
So 23 years ago, the old days of filming commercials and production, like now we can do things on the fly. Everything's digital. You can use bits and pieces of things and sort of edit them together. In those days, everything was done on film, and it wasn't digital. It had to be actually filmed.
Yeah.
So you went to studios and things. You didn't have. I mean, the advance time on production was significant. So you had to plan, and an entire year's campaigns for advertising would be done in basically
Wow.
one setting.
Oh,
And
really?
So
So
you
you would-
bring in, you do multiple, commercials, if you will, in one production.
But you have to know what you're doing in your business for like the whole year.
You plan. So you would plan, and which would reduce your ability to be flexible.
Yeah,
Right?
there's no-
So,
there's zero
so if something
flexibility.
changes economically,
You're like, okay, I can't do this anymore. You're stuck with
yeah.
it.
I mean, and so it was really more challenging then.
Big time.
And in some respects, in others, it's.
mean-
but yes. So in this particular case, we had this big production planned, and we had a lot of people there, and the person who was the original face of those Feldco ads, unfortunately, his wife was ill, and she had to go to the hospital, and so literally that day, he calls and says, "I can't be there. My wife's in the hospital."
Holy cow.
And
so that day,
so, again, my brother, he turns to
Man,
me
he
and he
gets
goes,
you to do a lot of
"David,
stuff."
You're up. And he points, he's like, "You're up." And I'm like,
Wow.
I'm like, no way, man. I'm like, so I'm not, again, fond of cameras. So it's like, it almost like was like a shock. I'm like, oh, geez, no. I'm like, this is your company. You do your thing. And so he pulls out a quarter and he's like, okay, we're going to flip for it. And he goes, go ahead and call it. I'm like, okay, well, at least I get to call it. So he flips and, I called heads, it turned up tails, or, opposite. Actually, I think I called tails and turned up heads. And so, yeah, I was the next guy up, and that was 23 years ago, and it just has kept going.
So how did that day go? Like, okay, so now he said, okay.
So it was terrifying. I mean, it really was, because, I think I was there for the thing because, A, it was a big production, and I wanted to see it, and B, because I was probably going to be an extra in something somewhere. And but then I had to like step up and actually do it. And I mean, I'd never done any of that before, so it was an entirely new thing, and I had no training in it, and yeah, it was scary as hell. So, I mean, it was a big production, bright lights, like I was like, whoa. But, over the years, it's been interesting. I will tell you, like, the next scariest thing that I did is I have to do periodically some live television stuff, and like on TV stations. And so like morning shows, because those are largely the demographic for those are, like housewives, if you will. So that's, that's our demographic. And so those are certain things that I'll sometimes appear on. And I will not forget the first time that I had to do live television. I was just like, my anxiety just,
It was intense.
oh yeah. And I mean, and then the lights flip on and you're in a TV set. And I mean, if you think it's bright in here, do it like times 10.
Wow.
And it's like, one of the guys that would shoot our commercials one time gave me some really good advice. So, when you're out and you're doing commercials and the lights come on, and you're doing it now too, so it'll help you at some point. If you're faced with bright lights, you want to blink, you want to your eyes are trying to adjust to the bright light. So if you're outside and you're doing TV, this tip was basically close your eyes and look straight at the sun and just stare at the sun through your eyelids.
Wow.
So like let your eyes adjust to the light through your eyelids. Then you open up and you're like good to go.
And you feel like, wow.
You're good to go. Like you don't blink, you don't, everything just kind of like adjusts. Have you ever heard that?
Interesting.
So remember that one, because when somebody's sitting here and kind of doing the, just stare at the light and, or even walk in this one,
Like
when
me
you're
on
doing
Sunday.
artificial light,
Grandma's
walk
trying
right
to
up
kill
to the
me.
light and just kind of like
It
leave
makes
your eyes.
sense though, a little bit.
Yeah,
The
it
your eyes are
acclimates your
adjusted,
eyes to the light, the bright light. So that helped a lot, and I kind of took that took a little bit of the edge off. So I was like, oh my God. And then people start asking you questions, and the strange thing is like I'm like strangely, I like to say the right things. I probably say the wrong things too often, but the you find yourself thinking about what you have to say. So you're asked a question and you want to say the right thing.
Correct.
So you start overthinking. And if you're overthinking, then you're probably not coming off very well, right? Like it's just, it's not fluid. It's
not natural.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like real. Like it's almost.
Yeah. So over time, I think that's gotten easier for me. You just get a little bit more comfortable with it, and hopefully better. But
I mean,
But
You look really good. I mean, comfortable at it.
Did your brother go after your first thing? You're like, all right, you're the guy.
well, he stuck with me. I think I was an inexpensive option.
You're like, we got to cut.
It's like, what, this
We
is
gotta
pretty
cut our
good.
commercial
That
budget.
dude's cheap.
Yeah, it's family. I mean, there's a lot of horror stories.
It's a tough thing. I
With,
mean,
with
I-
that, so
Those formulas don't always work out so well.
no.
no, a lot of times people can't even own like a little house together. So
I've had my issues
sometimes
in the
tough.
past,
Yeah.
so I mean,
no, it's tough. Things. Yeah.
I know it can be difficult, but yeah, we've stuck it out for quite a while now. He's put up with me for a long time.
He recruited you, so.
Yeah, his fault, right?
Yeah, he knew what he was getting into. Like, what was like one of the most like adjustments you guys had to do? Has been like a big adjustment shift? Like, you went 2008, right? Big recession. Anything they like? Hey, we got to shift gears here, or
So 2008 was an interesting year because not only was there a recession, but excuse me, it was also the year that we moved from here,
Correct.
being a neighbor of yours, over to our building. So we purchased a very large commercial building in Des Plaines, and that became our headquarters and our operations for all of Chicagoland.
Wow.
So basically, all of our warehousing, all of our installations, everything would go out of there, even up to and including like areas south, probably like to Kankakee, Northwest Indiana, at the time, we hadn't even expanded out to, or we were just expanding out, I should say. We had just expanded out to Rockford, which was kind of our initial proving grounds for expansion. Excuse me. And it was a mock change. It was a big commitment to do that. But it also was like the smartest thing we ever did because we put everything under one roof.
Yeah.
And rather than being, at the time when we were kind of working on really developing the culture of the business, it largely facilitated that because we had everybody under one roof, kind of working from one book.
Yeah.
And we were able to kind of like, push that message out. So it really was great. And it's maintained that kind of, we like to operate it like a family business. I've always been a big believer in, do unto others, right? Like the golden rule, if you will. So it doesn't take much to I mean, listen, you can make people angry a lot of different ways, but if you do things with the intent of doing for somebody else the same way you would do for yourself, and in your business, it's absolutely
For us,
true.
it's
And
the same thing.
I get the feeling from you guys that that's the way you operate.
No, we are.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to treat people the right way. You treat them like,
How you want to be treated.
Like family.
yeah, this is pretty much
Like,
it.
okay, here's what I would do. I mean,
It's not that complicated. People overcomplicate
So
it
even as
sometimes.
we've grown the business, and your question is, how's it changed? Well, it's grown, and so it's the scale of it is much larger, but we operate it like a family business, and we try to have people comfortable with giving input and receiving that input in a really productive way, and we try to get everybody on the same page, thinking entrepreneurially and doing, constantly improving. So I think if you do that, you're committed to it, it's a pretty successful formula.
But also, Dave, besides, they know you're the face of Feldco, but you've done a lot of the work too, like hands-on. Like you started from...
Well, it was a smaller company, and I was really blessed in the respect that I got to do things. Sometimes I wonder if I've got like ADD because it's like it's like it's like I need to constantly be doing different things. I was really fortunate to be able to get exposed to a lot of opportunity with things that I didn't know that well, so I had to learn. And I've been able to operate different aspects of the company and do different things. I told you I started selling windows when that was how I learned the business.
Like you literally went to people's houses and met them and
I
shake
sold
their
windows.
hand.
I mean, I sold windows and doors and siding and those kinds of things to
That's pretty cool.
understand what we did.
Yeah.
And so that has largely helped me. And I've always been somebody that liked working with my hands. So, I can walk the walk. I mean, I can actually do the stuff. And so I enjoy doing the stuff.
Yeah.
And that makes me happy. Nowadays I get to do a little bit more of it because I'm not as active, as in the operation of the business as I used to be, but I can still do I can still mess stuff up and enjoy it.
Does your brother ever call you and say, hey, we're short on the installers. Can you go install a window or something?
COVID.
Oh, so not too long ago.
COVID.
So it did happen.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So during COVID, I mean, labor was short.
Yeah.
Everybody experienced that one way or
I
another.
can see people going
Like when
the
he
guy
shows
from the
up.
commercials installing it.
Dave's here.
So one of the things I used to really enjoy doing a lot, and this is when I was kind of more on the operations side of the business, was going out to installations and making sure things were being done the way we wanted them done. And I mean, sometimes there would be a little bit of a surprise factor when I would walk in and start talking to the installers, making sure that things were going the way they'd be like, wait a minute, why are you here? You're the guy for I'm like, to make sure your job is the way you want it. So,
You're like, I'm not an actor. I actually work there.
right.
I'm real.
And like our guys are
Let me
out
tell you
there
about the
in the
coin toss.
homes selling, right? So people often ask like, who's that guy on TV? And they're like, well, he's the brother of
He's
the
a
owner
brother,
or
yeah.
whatever. And
It's a pretty cool
and they're
story,
like,
though.
well, is he an actor? And they're like, no, he works there. And trust me when I tell you, I work there. I mean,
Yeah.
it's, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I've left a lot of blood, sweat, and tears on the
Yeah,
floors
I
over
bet,
there
I
over the
bet.
years. So,
But
it's cool.
It's pretty cool, though.
Totally.
It's pretty cool. Because most of these
Totally.
companies, you know, they go out there, they have like a whole commercial, but it's all like actors or, how you say it, you know, fake people.
Yeah,
that-
you're like you're right behind the Empire guy that I grew up with, man. You're
Dave has a
What do
story
you mean I'm
about.
behind the Empire?
I know they're both.
He's a cartoon, man. I'm alive.
Yeah, he's a cartoon now. He's a cartoon now.
Dave is right here.
He's a cartoon.
Behind the Empire guy.
I don't want you to turn into a cartoon. I'm just saying. I know the number by
No,
heart.
totally. I totally get where you're coming from. I'm totally kidding. But you know, it's funny because you know, I hear that it's been a lot longer now than I even realized. Right? Like,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
I'm old now. So
I mean, you're
but
second.
yeah, it's a Chicago brand.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it's a Chicago brand.
Yeah, it is.
And you know, you hear that jingle and you know who it is.
Yep,
I mean, you
exactly.
don't need to see the logo. You
No.
don't need to see
You
me.
don't have to
You
see
hear the
nothing.
jingle. I
Yeah,
mean,
you hear the
it's
jingle.
oh, there's Feldco again.
Yeah.
And you know, there are a few companies like that. Empire being one of them. You know,
But it's interesting.
Peter Francis Geraci. He's,
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
Peter
I
Francis.
follow you. I really,
God forbid if you go bankrupt, you're going to call Peter.
yeah, you know.
But you were telling me the story about Empire too, and Feldco. They were kind of like friends, the original guys.
Yeah, those guys,
That's-
you know, they were old school operators that figured out how to
Yeah.
do consumer direct sales.
That was
and
that's
they
super
wrote the book
interesting.
on it.
Yeah, it is crazy.
Yep.
Yeah,
So
no,
it's
it's,
you know, there's a real legacy. Chicago has been the breeding ground for a lot of things over the years. You know, skyscrapers.
I think so.
And
Yeah, you're right.
Certain brands. You
Yeah.
know, like you can go from one
Yeah.
extreme to another, but it's you know, it's a legendary city that
It is.
has spawned a lot of different, you know,
Talent and
businesses.
Business and-
You know, it's a creative market. It's, you know, architecture in the city is second to none.
it's
I mean,
amazing. Yeah.
wow.
it's, you know, and you guys get to deal with that all the time. It's really
No,
cool
it's
stuff.
cool.
You know, Chicago bungalows,
Oh my God. Yeah.
historic Chicago bungalows. I mean, we do so many of those, and you know, we've learned over the years and been involved in the Historic Bungalow Association to, you know, you kind of cut your teeth and you become a go-to source for those types
Yeah.
of you know, historic properties. And it's cool. I mean, it's fun to be part of that.
Yeah.
So I got a question. My brother's got a bungalow. His windows are old. What about but they have stained glass in the front.
Yeah.
So would you just put storms, or what would you do there?
So there's some different ways we've handled those over the years.
It's a hot
A
topic.
lot of cases, what people will do, because you can't incorporate like a stained glass pane into a thermal pane.
No,
You know,
exactly.
but what you can do is take the sashes out of those windows.
Okay.
And you've probably seen them in homes where they'll actually take and hang the sashes on the inside of a new window, like it's done more decoratively. So you're not destroying the old glass, you're taking the sash that contains the original stained leaded glass, and you hang it up inside, or you suspend it, you know, you put a wire, and you hang it like a picture in front of the window,
like-
so as the light comes through, it shines through the stained glass, and you still have the effect of the stained glass and the benefit of, you know, new energy efficient windows.
Yeah.
That's one way. So you guys are familiar with low E glass, right?
Yeah.
So low E is low emissivity, which is like a reflective coating that's actually put on the surfaces of glass, which I guess for, you know, getting too complicated.
No,
or
no,
whatever.
say it,
But what it does, it basically returns heat or temperature to its source. So in hot weather, it's going to bounce the heat and the sunlight, cut down on ultraviolet rays. It's going to return it back outside and the cool to the inside. It acts like a thermos bottle. It makes your, you know, it makes your windows kind of thermos-ish, if you will.
Nice.
So you can apply that to a double or triple pane storm window and get some benefit. It'll break the wind a little bit. It doesn't perform nearly as efficiently as a
Sure.
replacement window would. But it's better than you would have with old leaded glass. So you can make a step up. You can still keep all the historic elements with your stained glass if that's where you want to go by putting a storm window on it, right?
Yeah.
But you can almost get like a better result by replacing the window and then using those original glass panes or panels, which, typically if you look at most bungalows, it's the upper sash. It's usually the upper
I can't-
sash of a window that's got like the really decorative elements
that's true.
incorporated into the stained glass. So when we remove the windows, we instruct the installers to be really careful taking those sashes out and that the customer wants to keep them. So, we'll let the customer keep them. Normally we dispose of all debris, but in those cases, people are going to want to keep those sashes. And then they use them like as a display, or they'll hang them on the wall, or they'll do, different things. I've seen some people set up some shadow boxes where they'll backlight, like a curio cabinet or something, and repurpose the stained glass. I mean, stained glass is beautiful.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah. So, I totally get. It's a great question.
Yeah, no. Every time we go over there, his wife's like, "Oh, what about?" I'm like, "You cannot." I'm like, "You cannot replace that stained glass." I go, "You got
and
100 other
I
windows
agree
in
with
here."
you there. I mean, there's some stained glass setups in certain bungalows that is so beautiful that if you take it out, it's like, oh my God, that'd be.
I mean, it's only 6 of the windows. You got enough. I'm like, there's enough other windows to replace here. Like it's only 6.
Yeah. So I mean, but even in those, like, so those are usually your pronounced,
The
like
front
your
ones,
bay
yeah.
or bow window that's in the front, that is kind of like your street facing curb appeal, if you will. A lot of times you can still get that, like even at night when you've got your home lit from the interior. You look at the home from the street and you see those stained glass panels because they're lit from the inside. So that's typically been the solution that we
You've been
kind of go
Good.
to.
Interesting. Pass it along.
Yeah.
hey, tell your brother to call.
That's what I
Call
got.
Dave.
Yeah, when he
Not
gets
Dave,
there.
but somebody at the office.
When he gets there,
Well, sure, why not?
he'll show up eventually.
We'd love to try and convince him to get rid of his stained glass. Not going to
if
happen,
someone-
I don't think, but
If someone wants stained glass, do you guys do that, or that's not?
That what?
If someone actually wants like stained glass installed?
so in the keep it simple, stupid world
There you go.
of windows,
Yeah, you're the 5%,
we
so-
used to have some colored glass options. It's not stained glass. They were
really?
basically were.
War.
We don't do it anymore.
They got complicated.
It did, and it was basically like these cut glass formations that would go into, and they were held within caming, which were, sort of preformed metal grids, and so essentially you would have, colored window options, and a lot of people that had bungalow homes would do that.
They like that, yeah.
It's to me it's not as traditional as leaded glass. It's not even close to as traditional as leaded glass, but it gave you a nice facsimile. So that was an option that people, you'll still see it around. You go around, and especially in this neighborhood, you'll see a lot of it. But that was an option. We don't do stained glass specifically. Again, that's a very kind of custom, specialized. It's actually art. I mean, when you come down to it, there's some people that I had some really neat stained glass pieces that I was repurposing when I redid my house, and I wanted to reuse these doors that I got, and unfortunately, I stored them for numerous years with the hopes of reusing them, and then when I wanted to use them, they had gotten damaged. So I found a person in the city, an art glass studio that did stained glass. I mean, they repair and they restore and they make and it was, I mean, they were Eastern European people that were just
Great.
unbelievable craftsmen. They're located over on Milwaukee Avenue and are fabulous. And they were able to, I mean, these things are done perfectly. You cannot tell. This is antique stuff. Side by side, you can't tell the difference. I mean, they were that good at what they did. So it's absolutely an art, and
that's an art.
It's not for the faint of heart. Just in passing, I was talking to my brother, and I'm like, hey, what I just heard is that our old house is on the market. And, so-and-so, tell him the story. He's like, well, why don't you go look at it? And I'm like, well, because I just leased this house for a couple of years. I've got no need for another place right now. He goes, well, yeah. He goes, time flies pretty fast. He goes, in 2 years, you're going to need a house. And so
He's right.
I go, well, yeah, I suppose you're right. He goes, go look at it. And so I went and I looked, and it was like deja vu. I walked into that house, and it was like identical. And I hadn't been in the house in 35 years, and it was like the same as it was. I'm like, holy shit. But it felt good. I mean, it felt like, I had pretty good memories about that house. And so I was like, why not? So I put in a filthy cash offer. I'm like, I knew that the people were looking to retire. They want to move to Florida. And I just put in a filthy cash
It was
offer.
off market
No, it was on the market.
Oh, it was on the
And it had been on for
for a long time.
not long. It was like, it may have been on for, 45 days. It was pretty short.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of inventory. So it wasn't like, things weren't moving real fast. Afterwards, my brother calls me. He's like, so did you look at the house? I'm like, yeah. He goes, I said, it's identical to when we were there. It's like it's been painted a little bit here and there. Pretty much identical. It's not in great shape, but it's okay. He goes, well, so what about it? He goes, why don't you, I go, well, I just rented this house. And he goes, buy the fucking house.
You're very
He goes,
He's pushing for it. He had the whole
he
thing.
just goes, buy the fucking house.
He doesn't want to hear him anymore. That's why.
Yeah, exactly.
Hear him complaining.
Exactly.
On his ride for 90.
You got it.
That's why you run like
You got it.
buy
He
the
goes,
damn
just
thing.
buy the damn house. I go, what do you mean? He goes, just go in, just be offensive and give him a stupid lowball offer. So I go, you're going to have to call your good friend and deliver this message. I go, so here it is. And I said, cash deal, quick close. Let's get it done.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, David. So she hangs up with me. 10 minutes later, she calls me back and she's like, so they countered with. I'm like, what? It's been 10 minutes. I'm like, come on. And she's like, they countered with. I go back and tell them that my offer stands.
Yeah.
And I said, that's what it is. I mean, you want to sell? That's my offer.
Probably Stu knew their number. That's why. Stu didn't even call the seller.
Right.
They just like, tell him we need this much.
So,
So you stand firm.
I was like, I'm not bending.
So you didn't go up at all?
No.
And it worked.
And sometimes no is the best word in any business.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like in sales, especially. It's like, and then the first person to talk loses.
That's so true.
So
true.
these are all the lessons I kind of learned
Right,
early
yeah.
on. And I'm like,
Something you learned the hard way.
Yeah.
I think that's how I learned the hard way. When I got screwed a few times.
How else do you
I'm
learn?
like,
I
shoot.
mean, if you don't, if you don't learn the hard way, you're probably, you're either brilliant or you're out of business, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, I just said no, and she called me back. She's like, okay, they said they'd do it. and then it got better. So and I had done all this just between like my brother going, oh yeah, go buy it. Well, now I had to come up with the cash. I'm like, oh, Jesus, where am I going to come up with all this cash quick? And he's like, I go, Doug, you got deep freaking pockets. I said, so how, how?
Doug, you told me to put.
Yeah, you made me say, okay.
Yeah.
And I said, so now he goes, listen, we'll take care of that. We'll figure that out.
Yeah.
And so I go back and I'm like, okay, done. Deal's done. Like, then I go to my accountant, financial advisor, and I'm telling him the thing, and he's like, yeah, we'll make it work. And we get off that conversation. Like a couple days later, he calls me back and he goes, you know what? You don't have a mortgage. Because you need some deductions.
Yeah,
He goes, you
correct.
need a mortgage. So he
Correct.
goes, let's get a mortage for just a couple $100,000.
Exactly.
And he goes, let's
Yeah.
get we'll,
Write off. You need a write off.
Yeah, he goes, well, mostly he's just a little mortgage. And I'm like, I promised them a quick close on a cash deal. Like I'm not going to be able to get. He goes, we'll get you a mortgage. He goes, it'll be done in less than 30 days.
Yeah.
I go to closing. And it took forever. I mean, something happened, out of Indianapolis where their mortgage division is, and so I'm sitting there. I'm like, God, this sucks, and it just took forever to close the house, and so finally they got done. I mean, they couldn't. First Chicago was totally apologetic. They actually kicked me back really nicely.
Oh, nice.
For my inconvenience. I'm like, oh, that's kind of nice.
Yeah, they messed up, probably.
But yeah, they did something wrong. Anyway, when I closed, I went to do a final inspection.
Okay.
And I walked in, and these people, first of all, they were slobs. I mean, quite honestly, they were slobs. And so they left the house a mess.
Wow.
And I mean, I'll tell you, I've sold plenty of houses in my
Yeah.
time. And when I sell a house, I leave it spotless.
Yeah.
I mean, spotless with a bottle of champagne in the
that's nice.
refrigerator.
That's nice.
You know, or
Yeah.
wine, so whatever. I mean, you know, you want to welcome
Yeah.
somebody to their new house, right? So
Not
you don't want
Some
to
people,
walk in
some
and-
people do. Some people's like, some people don't.
well, I do. I mean,
Yeah,
that's
no,
just
it's the
kind
right.
of the
That's
way,
the right. That's the right way to do it. It's just.
you would think,
Well,
right?
it's
I mean,
a big transaction. It's like, hey, anything you could do to smooth things over if they're.
yeah, I
you
mean,
know?
people get really stressed, and you know,
Yeah,
it's nice. That and rightfully so. I mean, it is, to your point, a really big transaction. So, you know, you would think that anything you can do to kind of decompress that whole, you know, scene.
It feels good. Like you've got energy. The house is clean.
Yeah, it's
nice,
good
Yeah.
a little
right?
bit- Yeah.
So
exactly.
anyway,
Didn't happen to you.
did not happen to me. So I'm like, call Pat.
There you go.
Pat,
Poor Pat.
I'm like, Pat, the house is just a mess. I go, there's shit everywhere.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
so there are a few things I had. So the house they had a pool table that they had left in the basement, which I was fine with. I'm like, okay, I'm going to use the basement as a kids' room anyway, so that's
Okay.
fine. Leave there. And they had a heavy bag in the garage, and I'm like, you know what? I love heavy bags.
Okay.
So I asked them, I'm like, if they don't want to move the heavy stuff, I'm like,
You're cool.
I'd really like them to leave
Yeah.
the heavy bag.
Yeah.
And they had agreed. They're like, okay, yeah, we'll
Okay.
leave the heavy bag, and we'll leave the thing. So when I got to the house, they had left the pool table. There
Okay.
was no heavy bag.
No heavy bag.
There was all their like crappy old exercise equipment that was heavy and in the basement that was just going to be a real pain in the you know what to move
Yeah.
out, right?
They thought you said heavy, so they thought it was
Right.
the heavy
Yeah, so-
old stuff.
But then they left their heavy garbage for me too, which I was like,
Wow.
this is not cool.
Yeah,
so
that's not cool.
I called Pat. I'm like, Pat, call Sue and tell them to, because I don't know how long the people that owned it had been out, but it was, I mean, I had driven by at one point when I'd heard that they were going to be moving, and they were moving themselves like in a U-Haul truck. So, I mean, it was kind of like they didn't it
call
wasn't
the-
like they did.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you know what I mean, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
anyway, they were doing everything on the low budge.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, I was kind of put off about the whole thing. I'm like, you know what? This is not the way you do this.
Yeah.
I mean, so I said, you know what? They got to get this place cleaned out, and now they're going to clean it out.
Yeah.
So I want it cleaned. I mean, all the garbage gone. I'd like it cleaned.
Why not?
Yeah. And then so they had to send these.
They
you know,
sent people in?
Some crew that they got, and they came in and cleaned it out. Fortunately, because I kind of lost my sense of humor at that point.
Yeah.
It was sort of like, I had a bad day in closing. It was like, why did this take so long? And then I go over there.
So
and
that
it's-
was after closing?
Yeah,
after
The
closing.
walkthrough. So you didn't do the walkthrough before closing?
No. No.
Wow.
No.
You got lucky, actually. They
I
could've-
know.
They
Because
could have.
I know.
They could have said sorry.
Yeah, I know.
And then, I mean, eventually maybe Pat would have helped you out on
I know.
Sue.
And it wasn't anything I couldn't have handled.
yeah, I
mean,
know.
it was
But
just-
it's the principle.
Yeah. So because of the relationship that had happened, they knew that I had grown up in the house. They knew
Yeah,
all
come
the
on.
whole backstory of
Yeah.
everything. And I mean, I just kind of was like, okay, this is one of those deals that I can let the
Yeah.
pre-inspection go on, right? Like, so
You felt, yeah.
Yeah, I was like,
get
hey,
it.
this is all
You're like,
cool.
you felt comfortable, yeah.
the guy was a doctor, I mean, like,
Yeah, you don't expect, yeah.
yeah, I mean, I'm like,
Yeah.
come on.
Yeah.
So anyway, it was a little bit of like a,
Yeah.
you
It's a
live and you
wake-up.
learn, right?
I know.
So
I know.
there's the moral of that story.
I know.
Don't skip your pre-inspection.
no. I always tell, it's like just always because some people are like, oh, it's
know.
cool, like just do it the way you're supposed to do
Yeah.
it because
I
everybody's
have
nice until
Until they're not.
they get tired,
Until
and then
they're
they're like,
not.
forget
until
it. we're
they
not
get
doing
tired.
it."
Good
a lot of people assume they're like,
Like-
oh, Dave will be okay with all those stuff. It's not a
Yeah.
big deal. It's just a few bags. But they don't understand. Like maybe Dave had a bad day and he has a lot of stuff going on. Now he has to come back here and clean your mess.
And
Like,
it
that's
was.
not
It
your
was like
fault.
and there was like personal stuff that was
Yeah.
like,
It's like, come
wait a
on.
minute, I don't
You
want
don't
to
want to touch
your.
that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, some people the other one they infamously do is like they turn like, oh, we moved out, so we turned the power off. And then it's like you
Oh,
go
those
there,
are the
nothing's
worst.
on. Or another one I've had where, like, let's say we're supposed to close on Monday, the buyer or whatever had a delay, so it's going to be Thursday. Like, well, we turned it off on Monday because that was the agreed date. It's not our fault. And like, yeah, so you guys had the power off? I'm like, well, now we can't.
Especially
and
the
then
especially
you got to
the winter
restart everything.
Yeah, it's like, well, we come
on.
trying to do a walkthrough. We don't know if anything works. Like, nothing.
it's-
It's,
so
just like, what does it
There's some
cost?
basic etiquette, right? Like,
just
I mean,
like-
you would think that there's certain
Correct.
things, and I think sometimes those situations can come up when you got new sellers or buyers, you know, where they're not accustomed to,
Yeah.
or they've been advised by somebody that's got, you know,
Yeah.
paranoid or whatever. So, I mean, generally speaking, I don't think that happens a lot. You
No.
see it more than I would, but I mean,
How was your last closing, Sherry? The walkthrough, was it okay?
Great, fabulous.
It was good. It was clean.
Smooth,
It was
clean.
spotless.
Everything was great.
Nice.
It was really good.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
that's the way it should be. I mean, it's, you know,
Well, I think the way you did it is the right way to do it. Like, you leave it, because it's always tense. And sometimes it's a transaction people get into and they already hate the other side. Like, you know, you're negotiating, you're kind of nickel and diming to some extent. So you already think.
and I bought it as is too.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like, you know, they weren't warranting anything. I just said, you know, I mean, it was pretty dirty. Like
Well, it
so-
calls, so the contract
I mean,
says
as
that.
is doesn't mean, you know.
Leave, yeah,
Yeah,
garbage.
don't leave it dirty.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it doesn't mean you're
Yeah, as is does not mean garbage.
it doesn't mean wreck the place and.
No, as is means that, you know, you
not
know,
gonna-
I got the roof and I've got the, you know, everything else, but, you know,
Yeah.
not your garbage.
Yeah, correct. Exactly.
But what
Do
about?
you end up putting new windows in that place then?
So they had replaced, the previous owners replaced the front windows in the house and a couple on the side, like in particularly cold spots, with one of our competitors' windows. And they were okay, and, you know, they were new.
Yeah,
So
so
I was like, oh, you know, when I did my project, when I got the house, I didn't want to tear everything out, and I was obviously trying to keep within a budget. So I left those windows in, but I did replace all the other windows, doors, and everything else in the house. And you know, I love it. So I mean, I obviously sourced everything through our company,
Of course.
but I love to do the work myself. So
Wow.
at the time, I literally did probably 85-90% of the work.
I mean, you
myself.
installed the window.
Yeah.
Installed.
Like
Yeah.
physically, you're doing all the work?
I did. Well, I got it. I mean, I did. So I hired a crew. I'm basically a general contractor. So
Yeah,
it's, you know, some crews, guys that I had hired for certain pieces of the
Yeah.
work that I didn't want to do. Like, you know, like my plumbing, my electrical, those things
See,
I
you-
had done by.
You really walk the talk. You're not only in the commercial,
Yeah.
just saying about you install windows yourself.
Yeah, I can do
That's
it.
pretty cool.
So, you know, yeah, I like to be able to know what I do. And so I did, in fact, you know, in my own house, I was like, you know, who's going to do it better than me? Nobody.
That's true.
So
That's true.
I did it. And I'm kind of like a little anal, if you will, when it comes to
Little
doing things
details.
my way.
Yeah.
So I mean, nobody was there to tell me I couldn't do it or they're going to shortcut me. No, but you know, it was a lot of fun too, because it was kind of a nostalgic little project for me. I was able to kind of,
Yeah.
you know, bring my touch to something that my mom and dad
Wow.
actually, you know, did a major, you know, expansion to back when they basically right before I was born.
Wow.
So it was pretty neat. It was kind of a cool thing. A little walk down memory lane.
Yeah, I think it worked out.
Yeah, I'm still there. My kids love it. So yeah.
What'd your brother say when he came over?
Huh?
What'd your brother say when he came over?
He's like, man, alive. what have you bought?
Oh, after he sold it to you, he basically closed the deal.
Who told you to buy this place?
His brother just didn't want to talk with him anymore on the highway, you know?
No, but it was really fun because I was able to take that old house that essentially my parents built
Yeah.
and redesign it
That's
to
really cool.
today's standards with what I wanted.
Yeah.
You know, so I went from the old format of the way people lived in the, you know, the 40s and 50s with small chopped
Yeah.
up, you know, space.
You end up
with a
opening it up?
I blew it out. So yeah,
Wow.
I mean, it's all open space. I put steel beams
put
in
beam- wow.
to carry the loads.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
yeah, I
Nice.
mean, so it's a big open. So the
Really
kitchen is in the living room is all kind of one, and it's, you know, for me, it's the way I like to live. So
Yeah. Yeah, that's nice. Those old school Park Ridge homes they're solid. They're
this
not
place
going,
is built like a Mack.
they're
truck.
a tank.
And my dad was an engineer,
Oh.
and so he he built things to
Yeah.
last. It's a brick home. I mean,
Yeah.
this place is built.
Yeah.
Built.
It just
Yeah.
needed a
And
little
then I,
modernized, but
and then I, unfortunately, like probably am the apple that didn't fall far from my dad's tree.
Yeah, exactly.
So I overbuilt it in so many different ways too. But yeah, I mean, it's that house is not coming down.
is your brother really detailed like you too?
Yeah, he's a driver.
Okay.
He's a driver.
But that makes sense why you guys, pretty successful, and took the business.
Yeah, I mean, he's my younger brother by
Okay.
significant amount,
Okay.
and I can, maybe proudly or not so proudly say that I have learned a ton from that guy. He is he's quite the businessman.
Wow. Yeah. But that's pretty awesome though. Oak Park has a lot of these.
Totally.
Older, Oak Park, like you guys probably, it's hard to convince the owners to change glasses or.
It's not just convincing the owners in a lot of cases. So
The city?
over the years, something that's changed in our business a lot has been municipal regulation, permits.
Interesting.
Permits are now required
Yep.
almost everywhere, and I think largely because it's a source of revenue.
Yeah, of course.
For the
An extra,
municipality.
yeah.
But in some cases, it's good because it keeps
Right.
things more. It keeps there's some. So
Yeah, some
we've had to
little-
become really, really efficient with permitting. So we have an entire permit department
Oh, wow.
that does nothing but permits and works with municipalities, customers, and a liaison between municipalities and customers, which requires us to be licensed in like virtually everywhere. I mean, when I say virtually everywhere, it's not just conventional construction license.
A lot of work.
But you've got to be licensed and bonded with
Yep,
each
licensed, bonded.
individual municipality, and those have to be maintained current. So as soon as you get a job or you acquire a contract or a job in a particular town, Oak Park is one of them because there's a ton of, regulation in Oak Park. So we've had to become really nimble with permitting, and it's a whole nother level of business that we didn't have to do when we were
Back
in
in
our
the-
early days.
Early day, yeah.
Yep.
No, it's completely different.
Yeah. So those are kind of some of the changes that you've seen in that business. And then technology. Technology continues to evolve. So you've got, low E glass was one of those big technology advancements in the window industry that made them more efficient. And
Sorry to interrupt
that's
you.
okay.
Just thinking about how everything evolved. One big thing I see now in the basement, the escape window. That was not even a thing.
That's a
like
regulation.
now it's like a regulation code,
So not only that,
and that costs a lot.
so in permitting, right? Like, so code, construction code.
Yeah.
Egress windows.
Egress,
Okay,
yep.
so like if you replace a window, typically what happens is the framing of the new window is somewhat smaller than the original window that you replaced. It's just by the nature of how they build
Okay.
the windows, that's how they are. So by code, a bedroom window is required to be 5.7 cubic feet of egress space. And that means if you open the window, and that's so that a fireman with an oxygen tank on his back can get through that window, so somebody that's trapped in the home can get out of the home, without having too many obstacles or having to try and squeeze through, something. So the code is 5.7 cubic feet or square feet of opening space on an opening. And so some things, permitting wise, can be grandfathered through.
Okay.
Where, if you can't, without modifying the opening, some municipalities will allow
They'll allow
you to
grandfather?
reduce the size of that opening by,
Okay.
a marginal
A little
amount.
bit. Okay.
Other ones won't. So your question about egress windows, pit windows, and basements, well, they, people have always converted their basements
Yeah,
to
of
bedrooms,
course.
right? Well, now, if you think about it, if a fire happens in a home, you're in the basement, you're not getting out
I know.
unless there's an egress window.
And it's a responsibility for us too, because when we're listing, they're like, "Yeah, we got 2 bedrooms in the basement." We're like,
They don't meet code,
technically, it's not a bedroom. They don't meet code.
right?
And then we could get in trouble too if something happens later on.
That's
So
you know
it's-
that's
it's
I
an
don't
iffy
know I
subject.
don't know the liabilities in your business or to what extent you guys are
There's always a
vulnerable.
disclaimer, but
It's
something-
still a iffy
it's something we
subject.
got to mention.
Yeah, I mean, so it's disclosure.
You
Yeah.
know?
Like
Something
you've
you got to
gotta-
mention.
You know,
But
it's
you
like
can't-
anything else that's wrong
it's-
with a house that you have to disclose. I mean,
Then another thing I see a lot of people do windows, but they'll never do their basement windows. They'll do the whole top, and then I'm like, the
because
basement's the most important.
but they're tough. They're tough because homes that we find in this
Yeah.
area,
This-
we're like
yeah,
we're
this
oftentimes
Chicago.
built around anywhere from the 20s to
To the
the
50s.
60s.
Yeah, 60s, yeah,
so
yeah,
in that ilk of
Those homes,
construction, those windows were set in the masonry.
You're right.
They were set
That's
in
right,
the
they were set
masonry
in the
of the
masonry.
basement, so they were actually built
glass
into the
block,
foundation
like
of the
a lot of them
basement.
are.
Yeah.
And so to replace those windows,
Super
oftentimes,
tough.
yeah, you have to break them out,
Makes
cut
sense.
them out, and then modify the opening to accept a replacement window.
They cost too much, Frank. They charge them too much. That's why
No,
they
well,
skip them.
sometimes-
So,
yeah.
You're
so
right.
when you go through and
It makes
when you're
sense now.
proposing windows to a customer, you break the project down. You're like, okay, well, that window is going to cost you X amount of dollars, and your basement windows, which is a quarter of the size,
That's
is
like a
going to
little
cost you twice the money to
rectangular.
replace.
See?
And they just
Interesting.
they can't get
Like,
over
forget it, yeah.
like, wait a minute, I don't get that. Well,
Yeah.
that's why. I mean,
There's more labor involved.
yeah, and there's certain, and then sometimes you can't replace them because, from a permitting standpoint, the municipality won't let
Then
you.
you got, yep.
So you sometimes end up having to do like a complete egress situation, which is what you just brought
Yes,
up.
we have a problem,
and that's where you need a foundation company to come in, cut the hole in there, put a well,
Exactly.
a window that's in excess of 5.7 square
Yep.
feet,
A
and,
ladder, the whole thing to get.
And
on.
there's so many listings out there. I've seen newer agents say like, yeah, no big deal. I'm like, no, it is a big deal. That's why they didn't ever change those windows down there, because there was a problem. There was,
or trying to get a dryer duct to go
Yes.
through through a wall.
oh, wow.
They used to, people used to cut the glass, or
the glass.
they'd bust one
I
pane
hate
out of
that.
a window, and they'd put a piece of wood in with a
Yeah.
circle cut in, and that's where that's
Sometimes
your
I see-
dryer.
I don't know how
duct.
they do it, like through a window, but it's all taped. It's like,
In more cases than not, it's a hot mess.
yeah, it's
It is a
insane.
hot
Like,
mess,
what, it's
yeah.
like a window.
Literally.
It's just a box.
Literally.
You see it all the time. I know you guys see it all
It's
the
like
time.
a
I
box
mean,
on a window, and you're like, what?
All right, guys. So it's been a blast. Dave, thanks for
Thanks for coming, Dave.
Thank you.
you
Yes.
guys,
yes.
I've had a blast myself.
we're gonna
It's
do it
always
again.
fun to kind of reminisce and share stories.
Yeah.
Shoot the, that.
Should we close it with a jingle?
No.
Okay, not now. You're singing. What? Everybody have a good one.
Have a good
Ciao.
one.
Happy real
Ciao.
estate.
Happy real estate.